10 things you may or may not know about the movie The Last Dragon. I was a young kid when this movie came out, and it was phenomenal for me because it had everything I was looking for. It had the action, it had the romance, it had the comedy, and more important to me, it had people who looked like me, people of color. The story takes place in 1985, Harlem, New York, where a young martial arts master supersedes his own master.
It is a celebration. You have touched the final level.
So he's in search of another master that can get him to that final level.
I am looking for the master.
Ain't no masters here, dude. Ain't no slaves either.
Sure enough, the antagonist of this movie, played by Julius Carey, wants to prove to everyone in New York that he is the master, that he is the undisputed champion. But the only way he can do that is to beat Leeroy. So he's made it his main obsession to fight Leeroy and prove once and for all he is the master.
That's the only guy that stands between show and total supremacy.
But to Shonough's dismay, Leeroy is less focused on some meaningless duel and more focused on finding his new master.
I will not rest until everybody knows Shogun is the master.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Chris Murney plays Eddie Arcadian, a music producer obsessed with getting his music played by a local celebrity VJ, Laura Charles, played by Vanity. After Leeroy saves his love interest from Eddie and his goons, Eddie then vows to get revenge on Leeroy and Laura.
That son of a bitch's history.
This movie was written by Luis Vinosta. He pretty much came up with the idea because he was a black man, but he liked kung fu movies. And he was just like, oh, it's just a very lacking of kung fu heroes. You know, you have your Jim Kellys and you have the people in the black exploitation age, but no real black hero that stands out. And he was just complaining about it. He was already a writer, so his girlfriend told him one day, he said, you know what, why don't you stop complaining and just go ahead and write a black kung fu hero for yourself? And that's basically what he did. He came up with the idea. The director, Michael Shorts is famous for movies like Car Wash. Michael Shorts pretty much jumped at the idea of doing this film. He thought it was a great idea and he just wanted to do it, and eventually he did get the job. But basically, this movie is a cult classic. I mean, not only it's been quoted by many people, everybody knows.
When I say, who's the master? You say, Shogun.
Alexa, who's the master?
Show enough.
Just direct your pizza to Daddy Green's Pizza.
Kiss my Converse.
Even Busta Rhymes made an homage to this movie in one of his famous music videos.
Am I the meanest? Show up. Am I the prettiest? Show up. Yeah.
So, without further ado, I'm going to give you the top 10 things you may or may not know about this movie. Sit back and enjoy this for everybody. Now, there are some spoiler alerts. So if you've never seen the movie, I'm about to give you some spoiler alerts. But even if I do spoil it, it's still going to be a good movie if you haven't seen it. So sit back and here we are, the top 10. Before we begin, we will ask
the big question.
Was Bruce Leeroy the first person to ever go Super Saiyan? So basically what I'm asking is, before this video came out, was he the first person to ever get a power up by having an existing glow around him? Stay tuned to the end of the video, we're going to go over that.
Number 10. The arrow that Leeroy chopped. During the opening scene, there was a music montage as Leeroy's training and his master is shooting arrows at him. Well, Leeroy turns around and he sees an arrow coming and he chops the arrow in half. That was actually not a special effect, that was actually real. And it took about 2 hours to get this thing right. And they finally perfected it after 2 hours, and that's the scene that you see, but it was not a special effect. They were actually chopping a real arrow. Number 9. The movie was a critical failure, but a box office hit. The movie The Last Dragon has become a cult classic in the black community, but never saw its full potential with the rest of America. One could easily blame it on the fact that most of the critics back in the 80s gave this movie a bad review. Despite being a critical failure, it was a box office success, making $33 million against a budget of $10 million. TriStar Pictures asked Michael Schultz to cut $2 million out of the $12 million budget. So the following night, Michael and Louise planned to do the rewrite in their hotel. When Venosta fell asleep, the director accidentally deleted 40 pages out of the script, and he woke Venosta up and said, "Hey, well, good news is we shortened the script. So what you see is the finished product of that script. You will never see any bonus footage or unreleased footage of this movie. Every scene that was shot was used in the final film." Number 8. The first time you see Oriental Asians imitating black culture. This is pretty much the first film where you see Asian people imitating black culture. And there's nothing wrong with that. Since then, a lot of Asian people have adapted to black culture. Most of the hip-hop moves and all the break dances are pretty predominantly Asian now. You got your K-pop, you got a lot of Asians doing their break dances. But this is pretty much the first time you ever see that on film. That was back when hip-hop was first starting and everything. Like, when you see this movie, it's very culturally diverse. That's one of the reasons why I say it's a movie for everybody. Because you got the lead hero who's adapted to an Asian culture. And you have Asians in here adapted to a black culture.
So, brother.
Alright, you know how to shoot craps.
But this is pretty much the first time you ever see that on film. Now I remember when I was growing up, there was always this Asian girl. She had long hair. She was even in Michael Jackson's video. She was hot. I liked her back then. And it's really fun to see people, you know, it doesn't always have to be an insult, but it was good to see someone adapt to our culture. And they've done a really good job. Number 7. Barry Gordy's heavy influence on the movie soundtrack. Now, it is no secret if you read the headlines that this movie was produced by Barry Gordy, so you can pretty much expect a whole lot of Motown in this movie. But in the original plan, the director pretty much didn't realize how big of an influence Barry Gordy wanted on this film. The director, Michael Schultz, coming up with some ideas for the movie, he found some music he thought would be perfect for this movie. It was a little bit hip-hop, R&B, and Oriental sounding all at the same time. But when he presented it to Barry Gordy was like, no. He said, pretty much, this is my movie and I want to have music from Motown. So you get a movie that's full of Motown songs. Barry Gordy must have knew what he was doing because it turned out successful. There are a lot of songs on here that stick out still to this day. There are 4 songs that are mainly associated with this movie, 3 of which were sung by a singer named Willie Hutch. Now, Willie Hutch is a popular singer in the 70s, and he'd done a lot of theme songs from other movies and TV shows, notably from the theme song of Foxy Brown, also the Mac Sound song, The Glow, Inside You, and Sake Wap Me Hot Sake Soup. And the last of the 4 is the main theme song, The Last Dragon, sung by Dwight David. Now, it was sung by Dwight David, but it was written by Norman Whitfield. Now, who is Norman Whitfield? Yes, you know Norman Whitfield. If you've ever seen the Temptations movie, Norman was that guy that pissed off Dennis. Norman was a producer for Motown. He wrote a whole lot of hits for Motown, a whole lot of hits. Like Heard It to the Grapevine, Papa Was a Rolling Stone, Ain't Too Proud to Beg. Pretty much from 1963 to the early 80s, he consistently had a top charting hit almost every year, making him one of the first super producers.
Norman just kept whipping us the other day, huh?
He's writing hits. You can't argue with that.
Well. Sounds like the creative juices are flowing.
Also, when he left Motown, he formed a group called Rose Royce, and Rose Royce did the whole theme song to Car Wash. Norman is a guy worth your research if you want to look him up. But Norman Whitfield wrote this song. The other songs on this soundtrack notably by the DeBarge, the one and only music video that they ever shot as a group, DeBarge, Rhythm of the Night. Vanity also sings a song for this soundtrack, even though she was not officially signed to Motown. There's other people on this soundtrack: Stevie Wonder, Smokey Robinson, Rockwell, and believe it or not, Justin. Number 6, the 3 fight coordinators, 2 of which are famous martial artists. Everyone pretty much did their own stunts. There was a few stunts that were done by Leeroy's character and Shono's character, but pretty much all the karate and the fighting they done, the actors did it their own themselves. This movie basically had 3 fight coordinators. Ron Von Cleef was chosen to be the original fight coordinator. Ron Von Cleef was famous in the 70s for being the Black Dragon.
Ron Van Cleef, otherwise known as the Black Dragon.
Yes, he had his own series of movies that he starred in. Ron Von Cleef was Taimak's sensei in real life at the time. In fact, that's how Taimak got the gig. We'll talk more about that later. Ron Von Cleef can be seen in the big battle in the dance studio. He's the one wearing a mask, I guess so no one recognizes him from the early 70s karate movies.
Shoe polish?
No, special Chinese makeup. This makeup?
No, baby, it's a real
Ron was chosen to work with Shono. He had that raw karate edge to him. George Mathis, who had more of a fluid, flowing karate style, was the fight coordinator that was chosen to work with Leeroy. And last but not least, Ernie Reyes Sr. Ernie Reyes Sr. coordinated the scene in the dance studio, and his son, Ernie Reyes Jr., who's more popular on screen. Everybody knows him from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 and Surf Ninjas. Ernie Reyes Jr. and Sr. had a lavish career in fighting coordinating. Just don't watch Surf Ninjas. By the way, what is this about? If anybody knows, please leave a comment below. Number 5. The owners of the Bruce Lee footage gave their approval at the very last minute. And one of the last scenes that was shot in this movie was the music montage where Laura Charles sends Leeroy into the studio and shows him the Bruce Lee video footage. So basically, the writer came up with an idea to have Bruce Lee pop up to make cameos in the movies, references to him. Leeroy's pretty much basically the black version of Bruce Lee. So they didn't give permission first to way at the end of the film. And see, they had already done all the filming, and see, they said if they didn't give permission, they were going to prepare the fake. And they had to wait on that, but it worked out perfect. Number 4. Casting choices in first film debuts. The casting was interesting because it was the first time for a lot of people. Here we got William H. Macy, and you've seen him in many other films. This was his first film. Brandon shows a tiny little kid that gets jacked up by Shono's henchman. That's actually the director's son. This is also the first major film debut by Keisha Knight Pulliam. Everybody knows her, famous from The Cosby Show. And the crazy thing is, in this one scene, she's called by 3 different names back to back.
Lotus Blossoms. Isn't that nice, Sophia?
Pretty chopsticks, Natasha. I wish you all would decide on one name for this poor child.
On the movie credits, she goes by Sophia. So I guess Papa knows best. This is the first movie that Mike Starr had a starring role in. He's famous for movies like Dumb and Dumber and Uncle Buck. Leo O'Brien. He played Bruce Leroy's younger brother, Richie.
He's my brother, and he's the master.
Leo O'Brien has a famous brother. Leo O'Brien's brother is Master G from the Sugar Hill Gang.
I said I go by the unforgettable name of the man they call a Master G. Well, my name is...
And they were the first rap group to ever come out with an album. This is Leo's first film. He also had a small role in the movie New Jack City. I'm sad to say that Leo passed away in 2012. He was 41 years old. Leo was shot in the abdomen. He was supposed to survive his injuries, but an autopsy later revealed that the doctors did not sew him up properly.
So the bullets came out of you? Oh, wow.
They took these out. The one went in here and it came out on this side.
Wow, man. So you feeling all right, though?
I feel fantastic. God is good.
What would you say to him now? Would you forgive him, or how do you...
I've already prayed for him 3 times.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not upset with him. I got a lot of forgiveness in me.
Before he died, he reunited with his co-star Taimak. In the end result, he died in his sleep. Glenn Eaton, who plays Johnny Yu, was perfect for his role. He was good at martial arts and he was funny.
You want to fight? You fight me, you big, ugly, smelly breath sucker! How about you? String bean Rick James looking fool!
Beast kill him!
What did the 5 fingers say to the face? Slap!
Glenn, Ernie Reyes Jr., and Taimak often reunite for things like Comic-Con and other events. Faith Prince, who plays Angela Veraco. Her character was a parody of Cyndi Lauper. On the movie, she has a novelty song called Dirty Books. Funny song, but they were smart enough to leave it out of the Last Dragon soundtrack. Vanity.
And that's fine. She's fine.
Yeah, one of the finest women that was ever in the game. Her reign was in the 80s, so she was underrated for obvious reasons. She was one of the original Prince girls. Now, I'll mention Prince because their relationship, more specifically their breakup, is significant in her taking the role in The Last Dragon. Prince met Denise backstage at the American Music Awards. She was there as Rick James's date, and as all is fair in the game of love and war, she went to the event with Rick James and left with Prince. In this clip, you can see Rick James at the 1980s American Music Awards. I can imagine, at that very moment, Prince is backstage making his moves on Denise. So back in the day, they were one of the original high-profile celebrity couples. Prince wasn't the only celebrity that she dated. There were others, notably Nikki Sixx from the rock group Motley Crue. In fact, she was there with Nikki Sixx the night he infamously OD'd and everyone thought he was dead. Also, when Nikki got in trouble in Greensboro, North Carolina for saying the N-word on stage, he used their relationship as an example of why he is not a racist. Prince wanted to market Denise as a musical sex symbol, but Denise wanted respect as a singer as the likes of Whitney Houston or Janet Jackson. As she was set to play Prince's leading love interest in the movie Purple Rain, she was later given an offer to be the damsel in distress in the movie The Last Dragon.
That ain't Lake Minnetonka.
Now, Prince and Denise's friendship never wavered, but choosing The Last Dragon over Purple Rain was Denise's catalyst to getting her creative freedom from Prince. Denise's role in Purple Rain later went to Apollonia. After 11 years of drug abuse, Denise nearly died, leading her to a kidney transplant. In interviews, she said that she thought she could never kick her habits, but after near death, she found her relationship with God, devoted her life to Jesus Christ, and remained sober for the rest of her life. She wrote an autobiography in 2010 called Blame It on Vanity, Hollywood, Hell, and Heaven, where she clearly states that Vanity and Denise are two different people. And that's why I respectfully call her Denise. I'm sorry to say that in 2016, Denise finally succumbed to her kidney illness and passed away in February that year. Ironically, just 2 months later, Prince died of an accidental overdose of the prescription drug fentanyl. They were both at age 57 when they passed away. May they both rest in peace together. I apologize for deflecting so much time towards her life story away from the film, but the movie The Last Dragon really was the most respectful highlight of her legacy as an artist. True Last Dragon fans will understand. Number 3. famous actors that were considered for the role of Leeroy Green and Sho'nuff. Casting for the role of Bruce Leeroy and Sho'nuff was a long, rigorous process, especially the casting of Leeroy Green. Thousands of young actors and martial artists auditioned for the role, but most of them failed to make any good impression. What I found intriguing was the celebrities that were considered for the role and celebrities that auditioned for the role but didn't get the job. For Sho'nuff's character, Jim Brown, Fred Williamson, Ron O'Neal, aka Superfly, Billy D. Williams, and Carl Weathers were considered. The role would have went to Jim Kelly, but he was not interested in playing a villain. I think Jim Kelly would have nailed it though. I could really see him being Sho'nuff. Carl Weathers, he probably could do the action and fighting, but I just couldn't see him wearing a jerry curl. Denzel Washington was another who auditioned for both Leeroy and Sho'nuff, but the role went to Julius Carry, a seasoned actor, and obviously someone who was perfect to play Sho'nuff. For Leeroy's character, there was 3 celebrities among the many choices that would all go on to star in their own action films. Mario Van Peebles was a heavily favored choice. He would go on to star in the movie Solo. Lawrence Fishburne, who would later go on to star in the Matrix movie series. And Wesley Snipes, that lobbied hard for the role of Leeroy, was infamous for his role as Blade. Now, Wesley Snipes can pull off any martial arts role he's asked to do. But back in the day, he could barely beat Michael Jackson. I found this interesting. Billy Blanks was once a top choice to be Leeroy. Billy Blanks had a successful martial arts career himself, but he's better known for his Taibo fitness tapes that came out in the 90s. As we all know, the role of Leeroy ultimately went to Taimak. Billy Blank could have pulled off the martial arts, but I think they was probably looking for someone a little more,
Billy Blank, but double the money and half the black.
Number 2. A professional actor versus a real martial artist.
Casting is pretty much continuing this one. I just want to identify the polarized characteristics of Leeroy and Sho'nuff. Taimak and Julius Carry are both 2 different, totally opposite. Julius Carry had great acting experience, but no martial art experience. Taimak had martial arts experience, but he didn't have any of the acting experience. Sho'nuff was a very vibrant, outlandish character. It took a special kind of actor to pull this off, but Julius Carry proved he had the skills to do it. But as stated, the one skill that he didn't have was martial arts experience. He resented that at first, but after working with Ron Von Cleef, as you can see, he done an excellent job in performing his fighting scenes, even performing almost all of his own stunts. Now by the time this video is published, I'd be the first on the internet to mention a fact that I discovered all on my own. In fact, The Last Dragon is not the first film Julius Carry done some karate on. In his very first film, he starred as Bucky in the movie Dolomite Disco Godfather, where he briefly used martial arts. But this is a Dolomite movie. Like it doesn't matter if you got karate skills or not in a Dolomite movie. You also may have seen him do some fighting as he plays Lord Bowler on a hit TV series, The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. Taimak, on the other hand, was not an actor. He was a martial artist. Taimak was the real deal. Taimak was a real karate champion, and as I mentioned before, his sensei, the famous Ron Von Cleef, was chosen to be the fight coordinator for this film. Here you can see Ron and Taimak, the Black Dragon and the Last Dragon, do a demonstration on grappling maneuvers. So as Ron saw that they were struggling with the leading role, he said, hey, one of my students would be perfect for this film, and suggested to Taimak that he audition. So of course Taimak had no problem with showing off his karate skills, but when it came to acting out the script, he didn't do such a good job the first time around. So after some time, his father gave him a good motivational talk and suggested that he give it another shot. According to Taimak, they were very happy that he did give it a second try, and he done a lot better the second time, securing his role. The director Michael Schultz said his most difficult task of directing this film was homing in on Taimak's acting skills. Leeroy Green is a very innocent character in a cruel world.
Kiss my converse.
Sometimes it is hard to live the way of the wise. Huh?
So to make him look more innocent,
he was not allowed to use contraction words when he talked.
He couldn't use I couldn't or he had to say I could not.
I'm sorry, I cannot.
Or he couldn't say they didn't harm me. He had to say they did not harm me.
Are you okay?
They did not harm me.
His fame, he could have went on to be a major star. But what happened to Taimak? Number 1, what happened to Taimak?
So what did happen to Taimak? Why did he just seem to disappear for about a decade or so? Why didn't we see him star in a bunch of A-list movies back in the 80s? Well, as you can see from our earlier facts, we can be thankful Taimak is alive and well and still has his health and strength. There are several factors of why we didn't see him on the big screen after The Last Dragon. One reason is that Berry Gordy, due to the success of The Last Dragon, was going to make a sequel to The Last Dragon, starring Taimak, of course. So waiting and starring in the much anticipated Last Dragon 2 could have caused Taimak to turn down some other good considerable movie roles, which the film obviously never happened. Also, according to Taimak, him and Berry Gordy had a conversation on how ecstatic Berry was to have him starring in the second movie, until Taimak asked for more money. Then he said Berry Gordy gave him the cold shoulder, which I believe, because it was common practice then for artists to get blackballed for asking for the money that they deserved. Michael Jai White said in an interview,
"A large part and one of the most significant people and experiences to my acting career is the man to my left. When he had such a successful movie that we all, I mean, it's part of our fabric. That's part of our upbringing. And for that not to be respected, made me really understand that I had to approach this with you know, in a business type of manner.
I think that they're supposed to do the thing that you know they should do.
Yeah, you expect it.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
But he had some other smaller roles back in the 80s. And even though he didn't achieve the mainstreaming success that he deserved, he still has had a lavish career in martial arts and other small films. In other words, he's still doing his thing. It'll be a long time before the black community forgets its Last Dragon. It's time for the big question. Was Bruce Leeroy the first person to ever go Super Saiyan? Well, Super Saiyan comes from the Japanese animation cartoon Dragon Ball Z, where the main character has a power-up and has an existing glow around it. Ironically, the movie The Last Dragon was released in Japan. It even had its own movie poster, which I don't like because I think the collage was very misleading for what The Last Dragon was all about. I'm wondering if the people who created Dragon Ball Z got their idea from the movie The Last Dragon. So, the big question is, was Bruce Leeroy the first person to ever go Super Saiyan? And the answer is no. Bruce Leeroy was not the first person to ever go Super Saiyan. Watch the movie. Sure enough, he had to glow first, right? So, final answer. Sure enough was the first person to ever go Super Saiyan. I hope you like that. Stay tuned for the next big question on the next Top 10 video.
So that concludes the top 10 of The Last Dragon. Again, a great movie. One of my favorite movies. I can watch it over and over again. A cult classic. And it's sketched in our culture. Click down below, like it, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know if I got a fact wrong. Let me know if there's something else interesting that I missed. And I will be doing more of these videos. So keep looking out, subscribe. Have a nice day, and I'll catch you on the next Black Movie Top 10. Like my jersey. It's my favorite jersey. It's a Bruce Lee jersey. Got this thing back when I was in college, and I like it so much I barely ever wear it.